Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, publisher and CEO of SOT. Today is Thursday, September the 6th. We've got a slew of hot new releases for our new product showcase edition here. And we're going to get kick-started with this whole thing from this long-awaited, actually not that long, but awaited release from American progressive metal act Redemption. Okay, this album is called Long Night's Journey into Day. Pretty notable for one specific reason. Okay, longtime vocalist Ray Alder decided last year to step away from Redemption to focus his full-time back with Fate's Warning, which for a lot of us fans of Redemption, were kind of like, oh man, what's Redemption going to do without Ray? Because his voice has just perfectly fit with the heavy progressive metal music and lyrical content of Redemption for all these years. When it was announced that his replacement would be none other than Thomas England from Evergrey, I was more than a little worried. I love Thomas England. I love Evergrey. But he's got a really, really distinct, unique voice. And if you read my review on the website, I was kind of a little worried that maybe him coming into Redemption would kind of change the band a bit and make them sound a little too much like his regular band Evergrey. Thankfully, that really isn't the case. This is a really, really good album. Tom came in, did all the vocals, helped write a lot of the lyrics. The songs, the feel of the album is still Redemption. Totally still Redemption. But you've got Mr. England's amazing emotional vocals there. This is a pretty damn heavy album. Of course, it's progressive. Of course, it's got a lot of really good instrumental passages as well. You got, who do we got? Let's give you the list of participants here. Of course, you've got Nick Van Dyke on guitar and keyboards. As always, he's the mastermind of the band. Hold on, I'm going to put on my glasses because we've got, microscopic text in these little booklets here. All right, so Tom England on vocals. He does not play guitar on this. Okay, Nick Van Dyke, rhythm and lead guitars, keyboards. Sean Andrews on bass guitar, and Chris Quinarte. I never know how to say his name. On drums, percussion. Those guys have been in the band for a long time. Featuring guests Chris Poland and Simone Malani on lead guitar. Additional keyboards by Vikram Shankar. It's a pretty ripping album. I dig it a lot. I have a strong affinity for Redemption in a big way. Really like this band a lot. In fact, I'll go on record to say that when Ray was still in the band, up until the last two Fate's Warning albums, which I really love a lot, I actually was liking Ray's voice better in Redemption and the Redemption material in general better than anything Fate's Warning's done over the last decade up until recently. But now that he's stepped away from the band, we'll see if Tom sticks around or whether this is a one-shot deal or not. I would be interested to see these guys live, seeing how that kind of gels and how Tom handles the older material. Pretty cool. Good album. All right, next, German power metal veterans. Okay, I'm talking about Primal Fear, Apocalypse, brand new on Frontiers Records. There's the guys with the three-man guitar army. Whoops, all sorts of stuff falling out of here. You got DVD, you got CD. I have not watched the DVD yet. I believe it's just some video clips, a little making of documentary. When I've been a fan of these guys for a long time, but they're one of those bands where they kind of stick to the same formula, album after album after album, and all the albums are great. But I think the last album or two, I'm starting to feel a little fatigued with the Primal Fear formula. So when they announced this album was coming out, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing it, but kind of hoping I'm not disappointed because I've just been, the Primal Fear freight train has been slowing down a little for me the last 2-3 years. But thankfully, I put this molten slab of European power metal on, and holy cow, some great tunes on here. Oh, God. New Rise is awesome. The Beast. What else we got on here? Hail to the Fear, King of Madness, all sorts of ripping songs on here that are just energetic and heavy with great Ralph Sheeper's Vocals. What do we got here? Let's you know the lineup, but let's read it off to you anyway. Okay, so we got Ralph Sheepers, of course, on vocals. We've got Matt Sinner on bass and vocals, or backing vocals. Thomas Noman on lead guitar. Magnus Carlson on lead guitar and keyboards. Alex Bayrott on lead guitars. And Francis Ojavino on drums. 3-guitar army. They don't always tour with all 3 guitar players. Usually, especially here in the States, it's very rare that, if at all, that Magnus Carlson comes over. But I believe when they tour in Europe and wherever else, more often than not, they get all 3 players out there. So expect loads of riff-o-rama, crunchy metallic riff-o-rama, and blazing, shredding leads all over the place. Just a really fun, energetic, high-energy album from Primal Fear. These guys keep doing it year after year after year. Okay, supergroup, Prague supergroup of sorts. The Sea Within, self-titled, Inside Out Records. Gotta get a good look at that cover. Look at that, very cool artwork there, up close. Okay, so these guys are, like I said, Prague supergroup. You know a lot of the guys in the band. Let me get this damn booklet out so I can read them off to you. But you've got Roy Stolt, of course, from the Flower Kings. You've got Daniel Gildenlow from Pain of Salvation. Actually, Roy Stoltz also with Transatlantic. Where else? Who else am I forgetting? Man, these guys play with so many different bands these days. All right, here we go. Finally got this thing opened up here. All right, where's the list? Where's the list? Okay, Roy Stolt, Daniel Gildenlow. Daniel just sings on this. Roy Stolt, of course, on guitar. Doesn't do any vocals. Other than, I hear him on like 1 or 2 tunes, but that's about it. Tom Brislin on keyboards. He's played briefly with Yes and Camel. We've got, oh, Jesus. Who is the rest of these guys? And where is this listing? All right, hold on. I'm going to have to go back to the glasses, guys, because I want to make sure I get this all right for you. Here we go. Marco Miniman on drums. Great, great drummer. He also contributes a little bit of vocals and guitars on here, go figure. Jonas Reingold on bass, also former, still in the Flower Kings, as well as a number of other bands I mentioned. Tom Brislin on piano, organ, synthesizer, vocals. Roy Stolt, lead electric acoustic guitars, vocals, orchestral effects. Daniel Gildenlow, lead vocal, a little bit of electric guitar. Okay, he does play a little electric guitar. With special guest John Anderson singing vocals on 1 tune, not lead vocals, kind of backing vocals with Daniel. Casey McPherson sings lead vocals on a couple tunes. Casey is with Flying Colors, great vocalist. Jordan Rudess plays some grand piano on 1 tune, and Rob Townsend plays sax on 1 tune. So what the hell is the music like on this, you're asking, after all this lead into who's in the band, who does what, blah, 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 blah. This is not your typical kind of bombastic progressive rock supergroup. There's kind of like a jazzy feel to these guys. I kind of, and yeah, you can hear bits of Flower Kings and what have you, but and obviously Daniel's lead vocals are always going to bring to mind Pain of Salvation, maybe the more mellower or more progressive Pain of Salvation. There's really nothing metal on here at all. But I kind of get a little feel of some of like the more vocal-oriented Canterbury bands of like the early 70s. Kind of those quirky arrangements, very emotional vocals, nothing too heavy, nothing overly energetic, and some really nice musical passages. Like I said, there's some spots it's very, very jazzy. Other times, there's a lot of pop on here too. So it's one of those albums that you're going to have to listen to a couple times to let it all sink in. It's not an immediate. The first time I heard this, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm a little underwhelmed. But the more I listened to it, the more I liked it. It's at least the version that I have is a 2-disc set. So we've got 8 tunes on the first disc, and disc 2 runs roughly about 26 minutes with 4 extra tracks. None are overly, well, you got a few long tunes. Broken Chord is 14 minutes long. The Roaring Silence is 8. Time is 7. An Eye for an Eye for an Eye is 7. And the rest all fall within like kind of 2 to 5 minutes. So, but good stuff. Great guitar playing from Mr. Stolt, as always. Vocally, it's a very good album. So between Gildenlow, McPherson, Stolt, and a little bit of John Anderson, not much. Very nice. I kind of would like to see Royna sing a little bit more. it'd be interesting for them to do an album where like they all take lots of lead vocals and all kind of share it. So basically where they're at today, so this band is doing some live dates. I believe they're doing one of the Prague cruises, but Daniel Gildenlow has got commitments with Pain of Salvation, I guess, so he cannot play with them. So Casey McPherson is actually stepping in and doing all the lead vocals. Kind of interesting. So we'll see where it kind of goes from there if these guys decide to do another album, whether it's just Casey stepping in full time, Daniel stepping out, or whether they both come in. I don't know. We'll see. Play it by ear. So this next one. This is a monumental album. Monumental album from a legendary band who is celebrating 50 years in existence. Can you believe it? You don't actually hear too many bands saying that they've stuck around for 50 years. Maybe not constantly together as a unit, but for the most part, yes. I'm talking about Soft Machine, Hidden Details. Brand new one on Moon June Records. So these guys, their first self-titled debut came out in 1968. They had numerous releases over the course of the next, 13 years or so with various different lineups. And these guys did like kind of a mix of Canterbury style progressive rock and jazz fusion. Okay, never really fully into either camp, but kind of an entity unto themselves. You really can't compare the Soft Machine to anybody else. It's like you have to talk about them when you're talking about classic jazz fusion, but you also have to talk about them when you talk about classic progressive rock, and specifically, Canterbury progressive rock from Britain. So for the last official Soft Machine release was 1981's Land of Cocaine, okay, which is a very jazzy album. A lot of different musicians on that album. Previous to that, you had all sorts of musicians coming and going from the lineup. I'm not going to get into the whole history of the Soft Machine. Maybe that's for another show. But throughout, they played sporadically throughout the 80s, did not release any new material. At some point, I believe it was in the late 90s, they kind of gathered back together, but there was some kind of contractual issue of using the Soft Machine name. So they went out as Soft Machine Legacy, with Alan Holdsworth on board, okay, because he played guitar briefly for the band in the 70s, as well as some legacy members from the early days of the band. Eventually, a couple of guys passed away. Elton Dean passed away. A couple other members passed away. Some older members came back. Roy Babington, John Marshall came back. John Ratledge passed away. Then John Etheridge came back into the band, and Theo Travis, who a lot of you will know has worked with a lot of the more modern progressive rock bands. So eventually in 2015, they decided to resurrect the name Soft Machine. They dropped Legacy off of it. So we've got the lineup of, like I said, we've got John Marshall on drums. You've got Roy Babington on bass, John Etheridge on guitar, Theo Travis on sax, flute, and keyboards. So again, the album is Hidden Details. 13 tracks in total, 2 reworkings of older songs, one from the Bundles album, one from their classic third album, all the rest new compositions. This is very much a jazz fusion album. Yes, there are bits of Prague and Canterbury on here, but it's everything you've loved about Soft Machine throughout their careers here. You've got the otherworldly, nimble, gymnastic, savage guitar work of Etheridge, who many of you might remember replaced Holdsworth back in the band. On 2 occasions, he actually replaced Holdsworth, and there is a reason why they sought him out to do this, is because he has somewhat of a similar style to the late Alan Holdsworth. Okay, blazing lead guitar work. Theo Travis does an incredible job on here. Not only did he have a hand in or write a good amount of the tunes here, but his just wonderful and melodic emotional sax and flute playing is just incredible to listen to, whether you've heard his solo material or anything he's done with, he's worked with Steven Wilson and all sorts of other artists and what have you, members of King Crimson. He's done all sorts of stuff. And his occasional electric piano and other keyboards. But then, John Marshall and Roy Babington, great rhythms, a lot of great grooves, a lot of lead drum and bass work on here. Fantastic tunes. Again, it's light, it's soft, it's menacing, it's energetic, it's catchy, it's all sorts of things. Well, I want probably one of the best instrumental jazz fusion, jazz rock, progressive rock, Canterbury, whatever the hell you want to call it, releases for 2018 right here. Dynamite. Seek it out. Okay. Mentioned some supergroups before. Here's kind of, sort of another one. All right. Sort of. The Magpie Salute, High Water 1. This, of course, is Rich Robinson. Let's name everybody who's in the band. So this is, if you're a fan of the Black Crowes, and you miss the Black Crowes because the Robinson brothers just simply cannot fucking get along, right? We may never see that band together again. But if not, you got these guys. So Rich Robinson on guitar and vocals from the Black Crowes. Mark Ford, guitar and vocals, also from the Black Crowes. You got this incredible vocalist, John Hogg, really, really good. Joe Magistro, drums and percussion. Sven Piffen, bass and vocals. Sven, I believe, also is from the Black Crowes. And Matt Slocum on keyboards. Additional musicians, Byron House on stand-up bass, and Dan Wistrom plays pedal steel on, I believe, 1 or 2 songs. So what's this album like? Well, if you're a Black Crowes fan, I think you'll dig this. There's a lot of tunes on here. Got about 13 or 14 songs on here. And some of it is very much in line with the Black Crowes, which is kind of like, you know, Southern rock with hints of a lot of groove, a lot of Americana. Some of it's folky. Some of it's very bluesy. Some of it kind of, you know, will remind you of classic 70s hard rock bands like the Faces and the Stones and little bits of Skinner and maybe, or the Allman Brothers, that sort of thing. But more often than not, it's just very memorable. Great instrumentation, a lot of really cool guitar work, whether it's electric or acoustic. A lot of great acoustic guitar work on here. For some of the rootsier songs, the more folky tunes, really, really good guitar work from both Robinson and Ford. I like this a lot. It's very memorable. Okay, it's not all of it's upbeat. Some of it's a little mellow, but it's just a really, really good, enjoyable, melodic, memorable set of tunes. Magpie Salute. Okay. Also on, I believe on the same label, is a Mascot. No, it's Universal, an Eagle. Okay. Here we got, I actually listened to a little bit of these guys previously. A couple tunes here and there. I'm talking about the Apocalypse Blues Revue. The new one's called The Shape of Blues to Come. So this is actually kind of like an offshoot band for 2 guys from Godsmack. Okay, so I'm talking about Tony Rombola and Shannon Larkin, who's the drummer. Tony's the guitar player. They have decided to do like a kind of throwback blues rock band, okay, that lets them live up their love of all things Robert Johnson and ZZ Top and, you know, early Led Zeppelin, Hendrix and Trower and all that kind of stuff, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Along with them is this kind of cool dude. His name is Ray Cerboni on vocals and acoustic guitar. He's like kind of like this older, shamanistic, resurrected Jim Morrison. He sounds just like Jim Morrison, and he's got a very similar kind of slow vocal style that just really works with these tunes. And also we got Brian Carpenter on bass. What do we got? About 9 tracks on here. Like I said, very bluesy. Guitar playing is off the charts on here. Sometimes, like I said, it's very Stevie Ray Vaughanish. Other times he like kicks in the fuzz and distortion a little bit and just wails with some additional effects. Sounds like, you know, Trower, Hendrix, that sort of thing. Little Billy Gibbons. It's a lot of grooves on here. Just a cool blues rock album. That's nothing more I can say about it. Just enjoyable. It's only about 40 minutes long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. A lot of fun. I dig that a lot. Okay, last new release before we get into Forgotten Favorites. A live album from a legendary band. There's actually 2 of them now. Okay, one fronted by Steve Howe and Alan White. You got Jeff Downs and, you know, Billy Sherwood and John Davidson on vocals. That's Yes. Okay, they've been doing that for a long time, but a couple of years ago, John Anderson decided he wanted to get back to playing Yes music. So did Rick Wakeman, and so did Trevor Rabin. So they formed Yes, featuring Anderson, Rabin, and Wakeman. So we've got this brand new live album called 50th Anniversary, Live at the Apollo. Okay. 2 discs, comes in multiple formats. You can also get the Blu-ray, which has the or a DVD, which has the whole concert on film, obviously. This is the 2 CD set. I think there's probably also a collection you can get that's got all the formats on it, but we were only sent the 2-disc set. It's solid. I mean, I saw this lineup. I've seen both versions of the band in recent years. Actually, I haven't seen Yes proper. I saw them right before Chris Squire passed away. I haven't seen them since. But I even thought then that band was seeming a little tired. And then I saw these guys back 2 years ago. Not quite 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. And was pleasantly surprised about how kind of upbeat and energetic and how much fun they seem to be having, which I don't get that from the other version of Yes. They just seem like they're up there going through the motions at times, which kind of sad. But this is good. Of course, they play all the classics you'd expect. But what's great is that they throw in, obviously, some really stellar tunes from Rabin's era in the band, so from the 80s to the early 90s. So I'll just run through this real. So first we got a little intro, which leads into Cinema and Perpetual Change. That's great. Really cool hearing this lineup play Perpetual Change. Then Hold On from 90125, very cool. I've Seen All Good People. I think you all know my feeling on that tune. I've heard it too many times, never need to hear it again. But of course, they got to play it. Lift Me Up, which is kind of cool. That's from the Big Generator album, I believe. Is that from Big Generator? I think so. And You and I, which is really good here. Really, really good. It's nice to hear Raven doing that. And Wakeman's keyboards are off the charts. The Rhythm of Love, another Big Generator tune. I could do without that. And Heart of the Sunrise, which of course is very cool, allowing the guys to flex their instrumental muscles. CD2, we've got a very, very strong Changes. Long Distance Runaround with a little bit of The Fish at the end from Lee Pomeroy on bass. And then we've got Awaken, which is fantastic. John Anderson just sounding superb. Man, this guy just never ages. Then Make It Easy, the intro, Make It Easy, leads into Owner of a Lonely Heart. And then to finish it off, of course, you got Roundabout. So good performances all around. Great guitar and keyboard work. Like I said, Anderson sounds great. Rabin, you can hear him sing quite a bit on here. He doesn't quite have the range he used to back in the day, back in the 80s and the early 90s, but he still sounds pretty damn good. Overall, the band is just fantastic, and I like this. I am dying to hear the new material from them, so that can't come quickly enough. All right, last bit of business. Forgotten favorites. So pulled this one out. I haven't listened to these guys in a while, but I always really liked them back in the early, late 90s. Talking about U.S. progressive rock / metal act Magellan, Impending Ascension. This was their second album, which they released, I believe, in late 93, maybe early 94, something like that, on Magna Carta Records. These guys, you had the Trent and Wayne Gardner. I was going to say Trent and Wayne Magellan. No, Trent and Wayne Gardner, who were the leaders of this band. I believe it was Trent who did the vocals. Yeah, Trent on vocals, keyboards, backing vocals. Wayne on electric and acoustic guitars and vocals and bass. Actually, no, Hal Stringfellow played bass on this album, and the drums they did, I believe, were all programmed drums. But anyway, very, very cool band. They had, I think about 7 or 8 albums they released throughout the 90s into the early 2000s. Had a lot of people into them for a while because, you had in the early, mid-90s, Magna Carta was becoming a force on the prog scene because prog was having this resurgence in the early 90s, and Magna Carta jumped on that and started releasing all these albums by all these young bands from around the globe who a lot of these folks either who were first getting into prog or getting into prog for the very first time or fans of the genre back in the 70s who kind of fell away because there was really nothing going on in the 80s other than Marillion and IQ and maybe a handful of others. So when, all of a sudden you had Shadow Gallery and Enchant and Magellan and Cairo and all these other bands, right? And Magellan was at the forefront of that. In fact, the 2 Gardner brothers worked with a lot of other different projects and things, and they were very involved in a lot of the whole prog insurgents, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm talking about. Throughout the 90s, got a lot of really noteworthy individuals to come and guest on a lot of the Magellan albums. Ian Anderson, James LaBrie, all sorts of people. Sadly, both the Gardner brothers are no longer with us. I believe it was Wayne who committed suicide in 2014. He found out he had some kind of a tumor, and then he took his own life. And then 2 years or less later, his brother Trent died. I don't really know what the cause was. They never really released it, but so within 2 years of each other, they were both gone, which is kind of sad. Two real geniuses of the more modern progressive rock scene. But anyway, Magellan, really good band, really good album. I always kind of saw Magellan as, like, if you can imagine, Yes, taking on a little bit of a progressive metal element. That's what I always got. Bombastic, a lot of wild, over-the-top keyboards and guitars and multi-track vocal harmonies, and just very pleasing to listen to, these guys. I always really dug them a lot. In fact, I was listening to this morning as I was getting ready for the show. I'm like, I remember how much I like this album, and all their albums, actually. So Magellan and Pending Ascension, that's my forgotten favorite of the day. Check it out if you haven't. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're here on Facebook, Twitter, and of course on the mighty YouTube. Very often. Lately, very, very often. So I'll be back at you shortly with some more content. Like I said, we got some rants and product showcases. A couple of you have asked for a Gentle Giant career retrospective. I am going to do one. Probably got to do that Gillan one first, though. Then we got the Priest one hopefully coming up next week. So, but all this stuff is happening. A lot of good stuff. Jazz fusion, my top jazz fusion albums of the 70s. A lot of stuff. So till then, take care. We'll see you next time. Keep tuning in. Tell all your friends, subscribe, and make sure you go check out the library. We got hundreds of videos on here, all sorts of good stuff from the last 4 years. So don't miss out on any of it. See you next time.